Hello everyone. Today's poem is定之方中, Yong Wind from the Book of Songs. This poem gave us a vivid, detailed description and a record on how the Wei people rebuild their state, rebuild their capital city of Wei state after a total collapse. This poem also could be referenced to some other poems in Yong Wind, like 百州, 强有词, and especially 宰持. So all these poems reflect that period of time. At the very beginning, the Wei state became has some of the affairs, ugly affairs among the lords, and thus the integrity was severely damaged. And then, because an invasion by the barbarian tribe, their city was destroyed, and the whole state collapsed then. And then they moved, some 700 people left and moved or ran away to a new place called Chuqiu, just like the map here. They cross the Yellow River and find a place between the Yellow River and the Ji River at the very side of Chuqiu. And this poem described how they make their planning. First thing first, when they move to a new place, they will travel around in this big area, in this region, and look at, careful study the feng shui, the wind, the water, of course, the mountains. And then they will pinpoint a place. And then they will make a fortune telling to decide if this place is good or not to build a new city. So it's all reflected in this poem. The first paragraph. 定之方中，作于楚宫. When the Pegasus Alpha star was located in the dead south, in the center, we started to build the palaces of Chu. The second pair of sentence, 熆之以日，作于楚室. So we measured with the sun, the movement of the sun, and we decided, we planned to build the cabinet of Chu. So basically, these two pair of sentences is a kind of rhetoric, which was so-called intertext or 互文. So basically, the first half, both of the first half of the two pair of sentences, they also apply to the second half of the two pair of sentences. Per the rhetoric of the intertext, let's rephrase the first two pair of sentences again. So when the Pegasus star moved to the dead south direction, and we measured the directions of east, west, north, and south by measuring the movement of the sun. And we start to build the palace and the cabinets at the place of Chu. So this palace, this cabinet, was also so-called as Chugong, Chushi. So there's some concepts here. So first thing first, the Pegasus star in Chinese was so called as 营市, which means build the palace, build the house. So this is basically the code of conduct. So in the ancient China, they will start to do the construction work at a dedicated time. At this time, when the Pegasus star at the move to the dead south at the downtime, so that when they monitor the Pegasus star at every downtime. So when roughly in the lunar calendar October, the 10th month of the lunar calendars, the Pegasus star will be in the dead south direction in its highest level. And thus, per the code of conduct, they can start to do the construction work, to build the city walls, to build the palaces. So this the first sentence they revealed a lot. So first thing first, they do everything per the code of conduct. So they follow the rules, they follow the code of conduct, and also they have their skills. So they can measure the sun, the movement of the sun from the east to west, and then they decided which direction is dead south, which direction is dead east, because they will build the palace according to the directions. The door will open to the south, and the back door, if they had, will be in the north direction, and they will have east gate of the palace. They also have the west gate of the palace. So this all the most important elements when they do a planning and timing, right? A planning will always consist of two things: the blueprint as well as the timing. So we can see this poem was written some 2,660 years before today. The ancient Chinese, when they make a plan, they are making it, they are doing it in a modern way, just like us. So we didn't improve too much per the planning skills, right? And the second concept is Gong, the palace, and the cabinet. So the palace normally will consist of two important buildings. First thing first is the ancestor temple, normally at the front part of the palace, and then the sleeping rooms. You can call it sleeping room, but actually they will hold dinners, and they will like a living room. So they in the back part of the palace, and the two major buildings will be surrounded by the wall. So this make a whole palaces. The cabinets refers to the rooms in the ancestor temples, because the ancestors, they have, for a big state, for a big family, they will have many generations of ancestors. So each generations, not each, but several generations of ancestors, they will have separate rooms. So in the ancestor temple, it's a big building. They will have several separate rooms for different generations of ancestors. So basically, that's the style of that. So on the other hand, you can see the ancient concept or the old philosophy of the ancient Chinese, the people who are living they stay in the same physical locations with their ancestors, right? The ancestor temples is the home for the passed away people. And the living room, the sleeping room at the back part of the palace is for the people who still living. So basically, they are still in a big physical space within the palace, right? So that's the philosophy, ancient philosophy of the Chinese. So just keep that concept always in your mind. And also, when the people pass away, their ghost will still stay in the ancestor temple, but their physical corpse will, of course, lay in the cemetery. The cemetery will be outside of the palace, outside of the city. So let's review the first two pair of sentences again. First thing first, they have a very, very good planning, and they also have a very, very good and mature skills to do all these construction of works to rebuild a new city. And the focal point is the palace, right? Because the state lord and his ancestors, the founders of this state, they live within this state. Live in this palace. And within the palace, the focal point is the ancestors' temple, right? So it's mentioned Chu Shi. It's referring to the rooms in the ancestors' temples. So you can, from the first two pair of sentences, you can see a lot of the social values, the philosophies in those times. Okay, the third pair of sentences. 树之榛栗，伊桐梓漆，鸰伐琴瑟. So we plant all kinds of trees. So I won't translate all these trees into English. It's so little hard for me. But let me tell you, the first three trees are trees of nuts. So it's the best breed of food among the crops. And normally when they have a big grand ceremony, this is the main sacrifice, along with the sheep, with the bulls. So this is a very important thing. 真利一 remember here it doesn't refer to the chairs. 一 it also read as the first sound. 一 as the chairs it will be pronounced as yi, the third tone, right? Okay, the fourth tree, 桐, normally, in general speaking, it's the best or most suitable material to make the musical instruments. And the fifth, 资, it's normally in 90% of chance, it's referring to the material to make a coffin for the dead people. So you can see that besides food, then they mentioned the wood, the material for the musical instrument. And then they mentioned the material, the wood for the coffin, for the dead. And the last is qi. Qi is the oil. Is the tree can produce the oil, the painting oils. Normally it's black or red. So it's a very, very important material. So in those days, a vessel made of this kind of painting oils is at least valuable compared to those bronze vessels. Only the noble family can have this kind of vessels, the bowls, the plates, the cups made of these oil paintings. So you can see all the trees mentioned here is very, very important. Of course, they must have plant much more types of trees in this new city, but they only mentioned the most important: the food for the sacrifice, the wood for the musical instrument, for the coffin for the dead people, and the most valuable trees, the tree of qi. And the last sentence gave us why they make this plant so many trees. It's the trees to make the musical instrument. Qin and Se is two types of musical instrument, and they are mainly made of the wood. The quality of this piece of musical instrument is decided how good, how fine the wood pieces it made of. Yuan here means where. So the third pair of sentence, let us rephrase it again. So we build this big palace, we build those houses for the state laws, for the ancestors, and then we plant all kinds of trees here. And he mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 most important trees here. And we will cut the wood logs here to make the musical instrument. So another metaphor here, musical instrument. So the musical instrument basically is a metaphor for the code of conduct, 周礼. So in Chinese, the code of conduct, 周礼, has another name, which was so-called as 礼乐, the code and the music. So it's a very sophisticated name to call the code of conduct, 礼乐. So here, basically, it gave us the focus. They do a lot of work, and they has the focus. For the palace, the focus is the ancestor temple, the founder of this state. And for all those plants, it's in one way, it's a metaphor of the new life, a new city, right? The plants will start from a junior, small trees to a big trees, which can be made use of to be for the materials, all kinds of usage, right? And all these wood materials, the purpose is to restore the order, to restore the code of conduct. As far as they have the code of conduct, they have the order, even they are a very small group of people with some 700 people right now, and in the long run, they will become a big and a powerful state again. So this is the first paragraph. The second paragraph, 升彼虚矣，以望楚矣. So we ascend a small hill, and thus we can look around all the area, all the region of this Chuqiu place. So actually we are not quite sure which small hill this group of people ascend to. This small group of people, of course, they consist of the state lord of Wei, as well as some of the senior officers, as well as the fortune tellers, because the planning work was always by the senior officer plus fortune tellers, and sometimes those people are one people with two or many title or jobs. So this small group of people, together with the Wei state lord, they ascend a small hill and to look around the place. 望楚于堂，景山于京. So we look around all the Chuqiu place, and also we look at the big hall, the hall of which the new palaces, right? So here, it might be after they finished the construction work, or maybe while the new palaces were still under construction. We're not quite sure. But at least the new palace has erected above the ground, right? And景山于京. So Jingshan refers to the big mountains in this area. Which big mountain? The hill so-called as Chuqiu. So today, if we have been to this place, maybe there is no small or big hills already, because the Yellow River flooded many times in the history. The ground in those times may be under the current ground some 20-30 meters below, right? Well, at that time, they can see the big, bright mountain hill very clearly. It's not a mountain, it's a hill, we should say. And because this area basically is a big, vast plain, so even a hill not very high, with some 20-30 meters high, it looks very outstanding still. So a mountain, an outstanding hill, could be called as Jingshan. And in today's Beijing, within the just to the north of the Forbidden City, there is a small hill with the same name, Jingshan, because the place of Beijing is a flat plain. A small hill still looks big and high, right? Yu Jing, today it means capital, but in that time, Jing refers to a higher place. So here we can see that in this place, in this big region, the outstanding hill of Chuqiu is the most high places. And besides that outstanding hill is the palaces. They were built on a high land, maybe not so high land, 5-10 meters higher above the ground, and especially with the big and high palaces buildings, it make that place looks much higher. So here in the second pair of sentences, this group people, they reviewed the building as well as feng shui, right? If this place is good or not for the new palaces. Here we can see that the planning and the review and inspections was conducted from the very beginning to the end, repeatedly. So those people do things with great carefulness, and with great they have a very, very fine plan. The third pair of sentence, 降观于桑，卜云其吉，终然允臧. So we descend from this place to the place of mulberry trees. So the mulberry trees in ancient China will always refers to two things. First thing first, agriculture. The second, the cemetery. And here it refers to the cemetery. So for the most urgent task is to build the house, the palaces for the live people and for the ancestor temple. And when those work has been finished or can be managed, is well going, is smoothly going, as far as they have some of the spare time, they continue their planning and to find the right place for the cemetery. 卜云其吉, so the fortune teller said it's a lucky place, it's the right place for the cemetery. And finally, the Lord, the heaven, they nod on this place of cemetery. 葬 could have two meanings in that time. Today it means lucky, but in that time it has two things. First thing first is lucky, because this place is a good place for the cemetery. Of course, it's a lucky and good. And its very original meaning is to hide, to store something. To hide what? To store what? To hide the coffin, to hide the corpse of the passed away people in the cemetery, right? That's kind of hide and storage. So in short, the second paragraph described a situation that those people, the state lord, the senior officers, and the fortune tellers, basically the management of the Wei state, these people are with great carefulness and skillful. They inspect, they review the planning and work all the time, and they also know very well which task is urgent, which task should be prioritized, which task could be put at a later stage, right? So the cemetery, to find a good place for the cemetery, is the second place tasks. And finally, they find a place, right? The third paragraph, 灵雨既零，命彼倌人. When the fortune and the lucky rain finally stops, the state lord ordered those officers, ordered his people, 星言夙驾，騋牝桑田. So they start early at the very morning and drive the chariot, go around all those places, right? And when they do hard work for the whole day until night, when they speak the final words under the stars, 星言夙驾, which means they start early, driving out to do their task at a very early morning. 夙 means early morning. 星言 means finally they make their words, they make their decision under the stars, which means at a very late night. 月于桑田, so they are feel so pleasant at this field of mulberry trees. So here is a continue of the second paragraph, right? The second paragraph, they decided to make the mulberry tree field at their cemetery. This is the last task of this whole construction work, whole planning, right? The planning of a new city, the planning of a new state. So the cemetery is the last task. And the character yue could be read or interpret many ways, but they all complies, or they are they all suitable for this situation. The first is 月于桑田, because they have finished the last task in a perfect way, so everybody was pleased. Or 说于桑田, so the state lord and his officers, they've draw their conclusion, make their words at this place. So this is make the conclusion, right? Or 对于桑田, right? The right part of the radical is 对, which means to fulfill their promise. What promise? Just imagine when the state law decided to rebuild the state, to rebuild the city, he should have make his announcement to his officers, to the citizens, right? As well as he should find the right people to do all kinds of tasks, the planning work, the fortune tellings, the construction work, the management, all kinds of things, right? And until the cemetery was decided, was located, the last task was completed, all his promise was fulfilled, either to the god, to his ancestors, as well as to his people. 对于桑田, right? So they all make sense. The last sentence is a little complicated, and also I have a new argument about this. So the general explanation is the description of the result of the new city, the new state, and also a praise word to the state lord. 羿之以日, so that person is not so indirect. It's indirect. It's not direct, right? The indirect way means skillful, right? Or tenderness. He cares the other people. He cares other people's emotion as well, right? So that's the indirect way means. So that's the indirect person means, right? And the following sentence further explained that person, the state lord. 秉心渊塞, his heart was so deep and abundant. 塞 or 色 means abundant, so his heart was full of everything and stuffed. 渊 means deep, so the heart was abundant and deep means this guy was thoughtful and he was full of thinking and emotions. He's merciful whatsoever, right? So this is almost the highest praise to a lord. And this is the conclusion to the all the actions, the orders of this state lord to build a new city, to build a new state. The last sentence, 来聘三千, the horses all kinds of horses, they grow up to a herd of 3,000 horses. So which means the people became prosperous and wealthy, because the 3,000 horses is a big asset, even to a state in that time. So the following is my argument, especially for the last sentence, 来聘三千. So in the history book, 春秋左传, this event has a record, and it was told as the Qi state. At the time, the Qi state is sort of the big boss state, take care of the other states. He sent 300 chariots with 3,000 soldiers to help the Wei state to rebuild their city, to rebuild their state. The Qi state also sent a lot of materials for the state lord of Wei, as well as the material to rebuild the city, like in the book 归公胜马祭服武称. So they sent the chariot as a gift to the Wei state lord, as well as the formal clothing of a state lord, because they just run away to this new place, right? They have nothing. And also the Qi state sent bulls, sheep, pigs, chickens, dogs, every livestock of 300 herds, right? And also they sent the woods to make the doors, 于门材, the material, the wood to make the doors, the city door, not only the city door and the palace doors, as well as the things for the wives, the state lord wives, so clothing, all kinds of things. So basically they sent a bunch of materials and wealthy to the Wei state and Wei state lord to help the rebuild and reconstruction. So my argument is the 来聘三千. So if it's the loan word, the loan from the pronunciation, so 来聘三千could also be read as 来聘三千. So this means there is 3,000 guests coming here. So this is referring to the troops from the Qi state, right? 3,000 soldiers. If that's the case, the last pair of sentence is the praise to the Qi state lord, the famous Qi Huan Gong. And because only with his help, the Wei state could be rebuilt. Otherwise, this state will be lost in the history. And this is also compliance to the history, right? Because also in the book 春秋左传, it was told that the planning and the fortune telling was made by the Wei state before the Qi state troops comes. And so when the Qi state troops comes, the two they meet up, and the Wei state people, the Wei state lord said, I have a plan already. Let's do it. You have bring all the materials and the labors here. Let's do it. And this can be, I think this is reflected in this point. But the focal point is more on the the Wei people or Wei state lord, because this poem was written by a Wei people, right? Maybe by the Wei state lord himself. So the focal point, the first two paragraphs, is all about the behavior, the planning done by the Wei people, by the Wei state lord. And the last sentence, he expressed his grateful to the Qi state lord. So you can see the weight in these poems, and the focal point in this poem is still the Wei state lord and Wei people. Okay, that's for today. Bye bye.